Welcome back to Mean Streets, where each week we investigate the best, worst, and forgotten movies of film noir.
I'm Luke Deckard.
And I'm Matthew Booth, and we are your cinematic sleuths. Today's case is 2001's Mulholland Drive, starring Naomi Watts, Laura Harring, and Justin Theroux. Directed by David Lynch. The IMDb logline is, after a car wreck on Mulholland Drive renders a woman amnesiac, she and a Hollywood hopeful search for clues and answers across Los Angeles in a twisting venture beyond dreams and reality. We're doing this partly because it's a neo-noir, but also partly in tribute to the late, great David Lynch, who died in January.
Yes.
I personally am a massive Lynch fan, having first come across him at the tender age of about 7 years old, when my parents thought for a nice family evening's entertainment they'd rent The Elephant Man.
Oh.
So that had a profound effect on a 7-year-old me. And then I saw things like Blue Velvet when I was much older, and Twin Peaks, and I fell in love. I was obsessed with Twin Peaks when it was first on. Still am to a certain extent. And then, so Lynch has always been part of my life from a very young age. I've always been aware of David Lynch.
You're the Lynch expert on this one. The Lynch expert.
Well, expert might be pushing it, but
more than me. More than me.
But yeah, he's been someone I've been aware of since, like I say, pre-teens.
Yeah.
What was going through my parents' heads when they rented The Elephant Man and thought they'd show it to a 7-year-old? I don't really know, but there we go.
Well, no, it's funny you say that, because
we were quite a laid-back family.
Yeah, well, in some ways we were, and in other ways, like, they're ultra conservative. It's a very bizarre. My upbringing is very bizarre. But no, similar. I watched The Elephant Man when I was a kid, sometime between the ages of like 7 and 10. I think it was before 10, and I mean, it scared the shit out of me.
Well, it really disturbed me. Me.
I still remember scenes, growing up. There are things that they're just embedded into my brain that, like, even now I can picture. And I've only seen it the once. I've never seen it again, and I don't need to see it again.
No, I have to say, it's not a film that you think, well, I think I'll watch The Elephant Man tonight. You've got to be in I certainly have got to be in the mood to watch it, and really have to gear myself up to watch it. I think it's an incredibly emotional film.
It is.
And like you, the scene where Michael Elphick brings all the prostitutes and the drunks into his room to torment him. That really, really packed a punch with me when I was 7 years old. And I'm not even sure that my dad didn't have to sit with me until I'd gone to sleep.
Yes,
talking about, because I remember vividly that Superman was on. Superman the movie was on a couple of days later, and he just kept talking to me about Superman to try and get my brain out of Elephant Man mode.
Yeah,
I love the film now. I think it's an absolute triumph of filmmaking. But it's I've had an uneasy relationship with it for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lynch has always been. Twin Peaks has been a part of my life since it was on as well, and I've rewatched that dozens of times.
Yeah,
and the film spin-off.
Yeah, I am less of a Lynch. I don't want to say fan. Fan's not the right word, because I like David Lynch and I've enjoyed some of the films that I've seen. I've not watched everything, but I think for me the sort of surrealist stuff is, and generally is not. It has never really been my cup of tea. But that doesn't mean that I don't see the artistic genius in his work.
Absolutely.
And things like that. But it's so, like, for me, like, I never when Twin Peaks was on, I wasn't watching it or anything like that. There's a lot of Lynch's stuff that I came to later in life for whatever reason.
We might get into this in a bit more detail, but the surrealist stuff, I think, it walks a tightrope between being brilliant and being self-indulgent.
Yeah.
So there are some, even in this film, there are some bits where I think, "Now, come on, David, you put that in just for yourself," sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you can either accept it or you can't, I suppose, or you just let it wash over you. Yeah, there are some things that about David Lynch films that you can just sort of say, "Well, I don't get it, and I'm fine with that." That's
Yes.
that's part of his appeal, I think.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, that was something I was when I was reading up about the film. I mean, in terms of what is the meaning and stuff like that. That was a lot of that was the kind of the main response from a lot of people, is that he won't tell you the meaning to his movies. He won't indulge in that and leaves it for the audience, to make whatever meaning you want from it. And that has its merits and has its time and place. But sometimes you kind of get the vibe that is that also a way to sort of excuse
Well,
a little bit of batshit craziness that just doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, and it's just there for his own entertainment. I think he probably does. There's a great snippet of an interview with him where he says, "Eraserhead is my most spiritual film," and the interviewer says, "Explain that," and he just says, "No."
No, yes, I like that. I do like that.
I mean, I like his refusal to engage in any of that stuff.
Yeah,
but there are times when even I as a fan sort of say, now this is a bit too much. This is self-indulgence more than art or cinema or whatever else it might be.
Yeah. So this film, because we can kind of go behind the camera and talk about how this thing got made, because the making of it I found quite interesting. It cost $15 million, and its box office return was $20 million. So not a financial success.
No, I'm not sure Lynch films generally were financial successes. I think they were much more. I mean, Twin Peaks Firewalk with Me, which is the cinematic spin-off, prequel. I mean, that was a bomb. I think people were walking out. But it's since, and I think it was mauled at the time critically, but it's since grown in reputation and admiration and all the rest of it. And I think that's something to be said for David Lynch. I think his films grow on you because initially you don't necessarily get them.
Yeah. Yes.
He makes you work for your money as an audience member, and I see nothing wrong in that. We might talk more about that later on, but he's not spoon feeding you with anything like some filmmakers. He's saying, well, this is what it is.
Yes.
You do a bit of work and fill in the blanks.
Yes, I mean it's so to the point to where like even his cast don't know what the hell's going on. I mean, Theroux was quoted as saying that David welcomes questions. He's referring to questions on set and stuff like that, but he won't answer any of them. He says you have to work blindfolded with him. Basically, he says if he were a first-time director and hadn't demonstrated any command of his method, I'd probably have reservations. And I think that's probably the big difference between someone like a David Lynch and someone like someone who's not David Lynch.
Anybody else.
Despite this sort of chaotic, unlinear, unset in reality, surrealist, absurdist nonsense that is that 2.5 hours of this movie, in lesser hands, it would have been unwatchable.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this somehow works. And I was gripped. I was intrigued and I was pulled along and I wasn't bored, even though I'm like, oh yeah, there was a scene where, there was a guy in a diner and he saw some weird monster at the end. I don't know if that's even going to go anywhere, but let's see what's happening now. Like it's I can see where it could be unnerving if you're working with a director who is maybe trying to do this but doesn't really get it. Whereas there are certain people that are kind of avant-garde And that, you know, avant-garde art is something that I generally just don't connect with. But there's some that is crap, and then there's some that is somehow mesmerizing and engaging, and Lynch falls into that, and this film falls into that for me.
I would agree because I'm not really. I don't get all of surrealism. I don't like all of surrealism, you know,
No.
and bits of it I do. Bits of it I think are absolutely fascinating. But somehow Lynch, as you say, he's got a handle on what he was doing, and always did have a handle on what he was doing, and a vision that he wanted to stick to that just appeals, you know, and it just works somehow. It's a little bit of gold dust that just makes magic happen on the screen for me. I can't explain it, but in many ways, this is what Lynch wants. He wants that sort of emotional rather than intellectual response to it. He wants you to feel it. Yeah. And I sort of do feel it, you know.
I sort of suspect that part of the reason why his films are so engaging and grow on people is there is a lot of dialogue is very good, and his character interactions are really good. And as I was watching this, I definitely kept thinking of like a Quentin Tarantino, where his films are a little bit crazy as well at times. And the thing that you're really swept up in is the dialogue, is the character moments, and the back and forth of the scene, and the drama of the scene. And I think that's probably what is another one of his strengths is, I mean, if we talk about that diner scene where I don't even know who those two people are. I can't remember who they are. There's just a guy and another guy, and one seems to maybe be the guy's shrink, maybe. And he's like, "Oh, I have a dream about being at the diner, and I saw this scary man's face."
This thing, you
know, and it's like one of those things. Like, this has kind of come out of nowhere. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but the acting is so fantastic, and the dialogue is so interesting that I just want to hear what this guy's story is. I want to hear what his dream was. I want to hear why he's scared about being in this diner, and why he's trying to overcome his fear. You know, I'm hooked on the scene.
That's exactly it, and that's down to the writing, the direction, and the performances. All of which, of course, because he wrote this as well.
Yes.
So he's really sort of in the driving seat with this, and you do say, "What the hell is this?" You know, what is going on? But you are intrigued enough to want to stick with the film to find out. Whereas in lesser hands, I think you'd say, crazy moss-covered, scary monster thing at the back of a diner. I'm done. See you later. You know, I'm through with this. But you can't do that with David Lynch. Somewhere. Well, I can't. You say, what was that all about? Well, I'll have to find out by watching it. You know, and then another thing comes along, and then another thing comes along.
Yeah.
And you think, is he going to tie all this together? And at the end, you get the credits, and you think, "Oh, right, fair enough." You know, and then your job as the audience member starts. You've got to piece it all together.
Yes, and it, you know, it's very it's intentionally disjointed, but as you watch the film, you start seeing the kind of the thin connections between scenes and people and things like that. And the connections are thin, and they don't necessarily enhance the story, but it just makes the world feel, I guess, a bit authentic in its absurdity, I guess. Like, I guess in like, because this film is, you know, there's a lot of talk about dream state in this, and I guess that's the other thing about dreams is dreams are choppy, dreams are chaotic. Someone might be in one scene, and then they might be gone for the next, and then in for another. And I guess that is another, you can really feel that with various parts of this.
Yeah. And that's one of Lynch's big themes. You know, that sort of existence between sleeping and waking when you're in that state, which is when your dreams really do come. And he's obsessed with dreams. All the time people are saying things like, you know, you've got to wake up. You know, they mean it in the sense of you've got to be aware of what's going on around you. You've got to realize who these people are and what they're doing. But the words, you've got to wake up. And he is constantly saying about dreams. I mean, at one point, Naomi Watts' character says, I came to this dream world.
Yes.
And she means Hollywood,
Yes.
But depending on your interpretation of the film, there's a big clue to what is going on in the film.
Yes.
So dreams are a massive part of David Lynch.
Yes.
You can't underestimate how important dreams are. Twin Peaks is all about dreams. Yeah, almost all of the characters in Twin Peaks at some point have dreams that are referenced, and it's so it's definitely a theme in Lynch's work. It's definitely what he was fascinated with.
Yes. So before this was a film, the original concept was a TV series, which I didn't realize. I thought that was an interesting little factoid to find out.
Yeah, I think it would have been a good TV series as well.
Possibly. And also actress Cheryl Fenn in a 2014 interview said that the idea came from as basically as a Twin Peaks spinoff for her character Audrey Horne. So this possibly could have been a Twin Peaks spinoff, but
I can buy into that.
Mm.
I don't know if it's true or if that's just Sherilyn Fenn on a sort of trip. I don't know, an ego trip. If it is true, I can see it because at least one of the two main characters in this film could easily be Audrey Horne in Twin Peaks for me.
Yeah,
it would have been interesting if that was ever an idea. That would have been really interesting to see.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of it, it sounds pretty much basically what you kind of get in the film, and that is the idea that he sold to ABC was that it's about Rita coming out of a car crash. Her purse has $125,000 in cash. There's this blue key, and Betty is trying to help her find out who she is. In terms of a hook and a plot. You can see that going for a very long time. And,
yeah, absolutely.
And the twists and turns that could potentially, come with that.
I think this would have been a good TV series. I like Lynch's response to when they gave their feedback to his pitch. Did you find that quote where they say, "Oh, that's great. So she's in trouble, and what happens next?"
Yes, I was gonna. Yes. I thought that was clever. He's like, "You're gonna have to buy the pitch for me to tell you." It's very Lynch. Very Lynch.
Very Lynch.
But I sort of like that. I like that. Like, you got to buy it if you want to hear more. I like the ballsiness of that.
And he will have said it with a smile on his face as well, because you can just see him doing it.
Yes. So, I mean, they went pretty far with this. They cast it, they filmed it, but it just didn't work for various reasons. The ABC didn't like the nonlinear storyline. Apparently, they had issues with both Harring and Watts' ages, which is interesting because Naomi Watts was just interviewed, the other day, speaking about her casting in this movie, and one of the things that she says was that at the time she's like, I'm not right because I'm just not that. She's not programmed for this sort of stuff. She says, I'm not funny, I'm not sexy, I'm too old, I'm too this or that. So she already had those sort of worries going in, and then it must have been a bit of a frustrated moment when the studio is also saying, "Oh, you guys are maybe a bit too old for this." And I'm like, how are they too old?
Yeah,
what's wrong with their ages? How old do you want them to be?
Yeah, nothing. I mean, their ages seem pretty spot on to me. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on how old you have to be the sort of characters they want these people to be. But it seems to me that they're just at the right time of their lives to be these two people.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, I'm such a weird thing, but yeah. So the non-linear stuff didn't work for them. Apparently the close-up of dog feces was a massive turnoff. And Lynch's quote is saying, he goes, "All I know is I loved making it. ABC hated it, and I don't like the cut I turned in." So, it just wasn't working for a TV show, and he spent a lot of time tweaking it and morphing it basically into the film that we eventually get.
Yeah. In a way, I'm glad it wasn't a TV series, although I think it would have been an interesting one, because I suspect that studio interference will have raised its head at some point, as it did in Twin Peaks, because the idea on Twin Peaks was they were never going to reveal who the murderer was. And the studio said, you've got to. And the minute that Lynch said, the minute you do that, the story is dead. And in actual fact, he was proved absolutely right, because in series 2, Twin Peaks slumps pretty badly after he walks away after revealing the murderer, until he comes back on board later and it sort of picks up. So he was right. And I wonder whether there was a bit of a relief in Lynch's consciousness about it being cancelled in case that happened again,
Yeah.
So maybe when he says I didn't like the cut I turned in, I wonder if he's saying that in retrospect with a bit of relief in his voice.
Man, maybe. Very, very possibly. But it's also interesting that in terms of casting, so you got Naomi Watts and Laura Harring, and apparently he called them in at different occasions for half-hour interviews. And one of the things that he tells them, he goes, "I've not seen any of your work. I've just looked at your pictures." Apparently, just looked at their pictures, and based on that, brought them in.
Yeah, well, I think he does that quite often. I think he has, or had, sadly, connections with people, and I think he knew what he was looking for when it walked in the room, or when it appeared in front of him. He knew that was it, And I think Naomi Watts is in the 3rd series of Twin Peaks, so he does work with her after, and they remain friends. Because one of the things I like about David Lynch is it's the same people that keep coming back in his projects. Yeah. He has Kyle MacLachlan is a great example.
Yeah,
and Angelo Badalamenti, who does the music for this and did it for Twin Peaks and several other projects. He knows who he likes. Laura Dern is another one. He's a big supporter of Laura Dern. So that fame, in order to campaign for her to get the Oscar or whatever it was, he sat with a big picture of her and a cow on a street, like whatever the equivalent of an American roundabout, American equivalent of a roundabout.
Yeah, the intersection.
The intersection, yeah. And people say, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm raising awareness for Laura Dern." And that is typical Lynch. But I think he's very faithful to these people, and I think he's very grateful to these people. And he said of Watts, "I saw someone I felt had a tremendous talent, and I saw someone who had a beautiful soul and intelligence. It was a beautiful full package." And I think the same goes for Justin Theroux. I think he turned up pretty much looking like the character in this film.
Yeah.
And Lynch just says, "Well, that's it. That's what I had in my head. So I'll cast him." And it's that spontaneity, it's that gut instinct that I really admire about this man and his work.
Yeah. The other thing is, as I was watching this film, I just thought, man, what a time the early 2000s were. Because I just keep thinking, as we go deeper and deeper into this, on these mean streets, there's just, and I look at certain films today and stuff, and I don't want to sound like too old manny, but it's like a film like this would not be in cinema today. It just
no chance.
Wouldn't make it. No
chance.
And I just feel like it's. I think I just missed the in some ways the diversity of what was in the cinemas.
Yeah,
you can find a lot of stuff on streaming and blah blah blah. Like, yeah, I know, but just this was 2001, the same year of like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. And what was there an X-Men film with it? You know what I mean? Like, it's a bunch of random crap that's all coming. Not crap. Like there's a bunch of random stuff coming out that isn't just like a summer overloaded with the one type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And what I've always liked about David Lynch is that he isn't a Hollywood. He's not a typical Hollywood director, but somehow he isn't totally divorced from the Hollywood system either. They seem to sort of love him, but are very wary of him.
Yeah.
Because I certainly agree this film wouldn't get greenlit now. No one's got the guts.
No,
I don't think to greenlight this anymore.
It would be a streaming show that would last maybe a season.
A season, yeah, maybe,
maybe.
And but I also I don't think there's directors like David Lynch anymore that have such a clear vision of what they want to do, and they will do it regardless. I mean, Hitchcock was one. Certainly with things like Psycho, he knew exactly what he wanted on Psycho, and he did it at his own expense in the end. Lynch is the same. Lynch knows what he wants, and he just makes it. And if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, that's okay as well. And today's Hollywood system seems to me to be, if nobody likes it, then we'll lose a load of money, so we won't make it. And I can't see Lynch.
Market research says.
Yeah.
Used to be superheroes.
Yeah, well, I can't imagine what market research would say about Mulholland Drive.
What would a focus group say about this exactly?
About this,
Oh my god!
I told my mum the story of it, and she said, "Oh, that sounds quite good. I might watch it." I said, "I wouldn't watch it if I were you, because you'll say, what the hell has he made me watch? Because you just won't. Best one in the world, Mum. You won't get it. It's not your thing." So yes. I don't think this film will be made either, and I don't think we have Lynch type talent anymore. I think we have people that make
they're being stifled. I'd say
they're being stifled
out there, but it's not.
That's actually a very good point. I'll take that back. As far as I am aware, we don't have Lynch talent anymore.
Yeah.
It might exist and it might be doing stuff, but
tell us in the comments.
Because I'm not aware of anybody that is of this ilk that is working today.
Yeah. Should we dive into the story, if we want to call it a story? So this film has been called a neo-noir. I
think it is a neo-noir. And also I want to preface this. I want to preface this by Lynch says this is this is a film with a cohesive story.
Sure.
So you have to bear that in mind, that he thinks this is absolutely cohesive.
Sure.
And makes sense. I think
so. I mean, anyone who might remember, we got some pushback when we did Lethal Weapon, because apparently that wasn't neo-noir enough. So does Mulholland Drive fall into neo-noir? How do you put it into that? Because I have some thoughts, but I want to hear yours.
Well, I think I'll just read again the pitch that he gave those ABC executives.
Yes.
The story of Rita emerging from a car accident with her purse containing $125,000 in cash and a blue key. And she's an amnesiac. That, to me, where's the money from? What is it?
Yeah.
What's the key for?
Yeah.
And then you get an everyman, or every woman in this case, helping her find out the truth. And they go on a detective trail. For the first 2 hours of the film, it is a detective story. They are following leads.
Well,
they boil it down to its main components, Luke. They are following leads. The phone book lead to they find corpses, rotting corpses. They are sort of interviewing people. They are phoning phone numbers they find to see who's on the other line. And I was reminded, watching it again for the purpose of this episode, the opening scenes. Not the bonkers.
Are you talking about the swing dance number?
Not the bonkers swing dance number.
Okay.
No.
The fuck does that have to do with anything? I don't know.
Well, in the DVD, just as a slight segue, in the DVD, Lynch gave 12 pointers to help you understand the film, and he says two clues are given in that opening montage of swing dancing. Well,
okay.
Apart from the old people, I couldn't find them. But anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw the old people, but like,
yeah, I don't know what the rest of it's about. I think he might have been having his on. A lot of this, you have to sort of always remind yourself that Lynch might have been laughing at us.
Yeah. Yes.
But that opening, the opening shots when you see the city from above, and it's massive. I mean, that made me think again of Dick Powell in Murder My Sweet when he says, "I was reminded how big this city is."
Yeah, yeah.
And the night shots look noir. They're all in seedy apartments. That says noir to me. And it's Los Angeles, which to me is Chandler country. Well, not just to me, it is Chandler country. And it's Lynch used to be about the seedy side of the seedy underbelly of apple pie America life, which is what Blue Velvet is about. This is the same seedy underbelly of Hollywood that Chandler writes about.
Yeah.
So I think this is noir. Yeah, I think this is noir. I really do think this is seeped in noir.
No, I don't disagree with any of that. There are definitely, it's crazy and it's absurd, but I think if you're considering noir to be, smoky-eyed PI solving a case with a femme fatale, thwarting some stuff and blah blah blah, it's not going to tick those boxes. But in terms of mood and atmosphere and all of those other sort of plot elements that you mentioned, those are all just heavily noir.
Heavily noir and downbeat ending. And I mean, arguably, you could say Camilla / Rita is a femme fatale, couldn't you? Arguably, if you really felt that you needed to have a femme fatale in a noir, come what may. But also, I do wonder whether Betty / Diane is one as well.
Mean Streets will return right after this. Who doesn't love a good boxing movie? Well, Steve Hunt presents the Boxing Movie Podcast. On each episode, Steve and his guests discuss a movie that has boxing as a theme. Do not be put off if you're not a fan of boxing, though. Of course, he covers the likes of Rocky and the sequels, but the depth of boxing-themed movies across cinema history is much greater than you might imagine. Boxing Movie Podcast has covered the early works of Hitchcock, explored the world of blaxploitation cinema and the golden age of film noir, with episodes covering The Setup, Champion, and Stanley Kubrick's Killer's Kiss. You might not have previously considered yourself a boxing movie fan, but after listening to a few episodes of the Boxing Movie Podcast, you may have to reconsider that view. Find the Boxing Movie Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Now, back to the show.
So I think you could make a case for there being femme fatales in here, but there's certainly no smoky piano. There are two cops who were in it for about 90 seconds. And they're only then referenced. Those two detectives came around again, 2.5 hours later. So
yes,
this is all about the two women. But not all noir has a PI. I would say to anyone who wants those box ticking, the postman always rings twice hasn't got a PI, a smoky PI, and Double Indemnity hasn't, for that matter. So some of the Glass Key hasn't, has it? So for some of those box ticking things about having what noir should have, you're not going to get with this. But you don't get it with a lot of noir, and noir is more than that to me. And this is what noir is about. I accept it's window dressed with absurd, surrealist, bonkers, Lynch tinsel, but at its heart, it's a noir film for me, and I'd be hard pressed to shift from that.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, once you kind of get past that opening scene with the swing dance number, the film sort of the film has this moment where Reed is in the back of a car and the guy turns around and he's gonna shoot her, and then suddenly the car gets smashed. I really liked that scene, the sort of juxtaposition between Rita in the limo and the guy, and then it just keeps smash cutting to some kids driving really fast in the hills. And when they jump to those kids, it's very loud and chaotic, and then this is back to this quiet limo where this girl's got a gun pointed at her, and then you got the big crash. It's such an interesting thing because it's like everyone talks about the dream state of this, and it's like, well, when do you get into the dream? When does the dream start? And I kept feeling like from the very beginning, when Rita is in that car and the car gets hit and she wakes up and she stumbles out of the car and then goes walking into the bushes and then just sort of finds a house and sneaks inside a house. I almost felt like she's like a lost ghost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like she's not real. She's dead. We're watching a specter.
I think in broad terms, to answer the question, when does the dream start? I think it starts straight after the credits and it ends 2 hours later. I think the whole first part of the film, I think all the time Naomi Watts is Betty, we're in her dream. And when she's Diane, that's real life. She's woken up and that's what her life really is.
Yes, yeah. I definitely think so, and that's definitely where the film gets crazy. Is once there is this moment where it's about 2 hours in, and suddenly the box is unlocked. Yeah. And Betty vanishes. We don't see Betty again, but we see Diane, and she's this. Betty's Watts' character has transformed from this sweet, beautiful, perky, Midwest hopeful girl. Just she looked like she's like probably addicted to drugs and drink. Yeah, just awful and a failure.
Life. And she's failed.
Yeah. So I can see that it's her sort of. This sort of fiction that she's playing through, and then as the film goes on, she develops this romance. Betty develops this romance, with Rita, and it gets very hot and sexual.
It does, it does,
and it speaks to her sort of, I guess, obsession with Rita, because Rita has everything that she wants.
Yeah, I think it's that
once we get to that point.
I think it's in very simple terms. I think this what the story is Diane and Camilla. Is it Camilla? It is Camilla. They are lovers. Camilla is very successful and has probably slept away around, with whoever she needed to, of whatever gender she needed to get to the top, whereas Diana's failed. Yeah. And I think Diane probably started like Betty was and has gone into a Hollywood decline. So she plots to kill Camilla with the hitman in the diner. And the earlier part of the film is her conscience or her subconscious, whatever, trying to put that right, if you know what I mean. And she's saying, I can't control Camilla in real life, so I'll make her Rita, who is an amnesiac, and I will be a much better version of myself before life went to shit. And I will make, in a very Vertigo type way, I will make this amnesiac Rita into the Camilla that I wanted and that I can control. And I think that's what. So it's her working out what she's planning to do and does to sort of cleanse herself of it. Which is why I think when they're in the club and there's that Spanish version of Crying being sung, she seems to have a fit in the chair.
Yes, she does. Yes,
And I can't help thinking that's dreams help us process our fears, and I can't help thinking that's fear of the electric chair manifested itself.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I can see that because she's I sort of wondered what the whole what that jittery, shaky moment was about, but now that you say that actually makes sense. I can see that being.
This is the beauty of David Lynch. I could be completely off court here and be talking absolute.
She could just have seizures.
She could just have a seizure in the moment. Yeah, she might not like Crying by Roy Orbison. Who knows? But what Lynch is saying is, if that's how you interpret it, Matt, then that's good enough for me. Well done.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. There's sort of no right or wrong answers, but that's what it appears to be to me. That because dreams do help you process your fears and your anxieties, and if she's planning to kill the real Camilla, if Diane is planning to kill the real Camilla, then surely her own judicial death, for want of a better phrase, would be preying on her mind as well, and that's what the dream is doing.
Yeah, I can see that definitely, and also the way in which Betty is trying so hard to help Rita, despite it being it being crazy. It's like, this girl doesn't know your aunt. You don't know her from anyone. Like,
why are you bothering?
What are you doing? Like, if this was a film based in the real world, I would be screaming at the screen.
Yeah.
But this is where you have to view a Lynch film with a different brain, going on, because that's just not, that's not what's happening here. We're in a different plane of.
You're in a dream state, because in the waking world, she's planning to kill her.
Yeah.
So in her dream world, she's trying to save her.
Yes. And I love it. I also love two things. One, that they're just total opposites in the way that they look. The kind of bright blonde-haired Angel and the dark-haired almost femme fatale, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
And I like the juxtaposition of the two. One is also more curvy than the other. And I just feel like all of that was intentional in terms of body type and style.
So do I, absolutely. One looks like the girl next door, or one looks like a Hollywood starlet.
Yes.
So one stands for, those kids who go looking for bright lights, bright cities, and the other one is what they potentially get turned into once the dark side of Hollywood's got hold of them. So, yeah, I absolutely think it's a conscious choice. That definitely.
What's your take on when there's that moment where they go looking, they find a name and the D Selwyn, and they go to the apartment and knock on the door and say, "Oh, I swapped apartments with her. She's in 17 now." So they go to 17. That's when they find the corpse, and Rita back home is freaking out and like trying to cut her hair and stuff like that. What's your take on that? Because I was a little bit confused with that scene. I couldn't quite work out why Rita was doing that and what that was trying to say, other than the corpse was her. I felt the corpse was her.
I think, the corpse is her. The corpse is the real Camilla after the hitman's got her.
Yeah. And
of course, the hitman isn't the bumbling idiot he's shown to be in that hilarious scene.
Yeah, I want to get to that.
In the dream, which we'll get onto in a minute.
Yeah.
So I think it is the sort of dream Rita, who is the dream Camilla, sort of trying to distance herself from that within the dream, saying, "I don't want, that's not going to happen to that can't happen to me. I don't," and just raging at herself, But equally, because this is Diane's dream where she is Betty. As I say, I mentioned Vertigo before. It's her way of control. She says, "Let me do it," and puts the blonde wig on her to turn her into herself, essentially, or into the Camilla that she's seen on a photo.
Yes.
So I think it's sort of Rita trying to say, what you've got planned for me in the waking world, I'm not going to let happen, because I'm going to, and this is how it manifests itself. She cuts off all her hair. But to stop it so that the waking world can continue, Betty says, "No, let me do it." And then molds her into what she wants her to be.
I can see that.
The body on the bed is definitely
Yeah.
Rita stroke Camilla. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So essentially it's someone seeing their own corpse and going a bit nuts, you know.
Yes. Yes. Except the version that sees the corpse isn't the dreamer. It's
dream. It's the dream.
It's the dream seeing the so it's such a it's all I guess it's all in Betty. It's all part of Betty.
It's all part of Betty's psychosis. Yeah, it's all part of Betty's twisted bitterness that's driving this dream. Yes. And it's the manifestation of the dream Rita, the dream Camilla, seeing the reality of what is going to happen to real Camilla. You know, and Betty then having to stop that from disrupting the dream. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think what I love so much about this film is how if you you know, it's very, I feel it'd be very easy to watch this and feel and be quite jarred when Betty turns out to be Diane, turns out to be you know, a washed up rag. Because the first 2 hours or so of this movie, she's such a sweet thing.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think there's. I remember watching this for the first time and not being anywhere near as willing or able to talk about it as I am at the moment. Thinking, what? I don't get it. What? I don't get it. You know, and so I had to watch it again. You know, and this time you have to watch it with paying much more attention to it, you know, because you can't really watch a David Lynch film the way you watch other films, which is just like, I'll let it play out in front of me. I said at the beginning, he's going to make you work for your money.
Yes.
So it is jarring. It definitely is jarring when you wake up and suddenly someone you know as Betty is being called Diane. You think, who the hell's Diane?
Yes. Because we are introduced to Camilla in the dream.
We are introduced to Camilla in the dream.
It's a different actor at that point.
Yeah, who doesn't exist. Yeah, it's Melissa George, who doesn't exist. Really doesn't exist. She is a nobody in the real world because we meet her at Adam Keisha's dinner party by the pool.
Yeah. Yes.
Later, which again is another piece of evidence for it being a dream.
Because like, you know, like when you have those moments in a dream, like you were there, but you weren't you. You were someone else, right. But it was you.
Yeah, that's right. Look like you, but you were my brother, you know, or you were my boss or somebody. Yeah, well, that happens to Diane because all the whole cast appears at that. You know, so yeah, there's another piece of evidence for it being a dream, but. So yeah, the blonde version of Camilla looks like Rita, the real Camilla. The dream Camilla looks like Melissa George with the short blonde hair.
Yeah. Yes.
But really, she's just a 2-bit actress that's trying to make it the same as Diane was.
Yes.
And same as Betty is. You know.
Now let's talk about the scene where the character of Adam, the director, is meeting the film executives. Because this is a typical David Lynch
scene. This
I loved everything about this scene. One, there's this element of, in terms of kind of linking it back to Rita and Betty. Adam's making a film, and they say to him, "Your lead actress isn't good enough. This girl's going to come and see you, and you're going to cast her. You're going to cast her." And shenanigans happen. And the whole time, at least for me, I kept thinking, oh, this is going to be Betty. This is going to be Betty. Betty's going to be the girl he's going to see that has to be cast in this film.
Yeah.
And then the twist is that no, it's Rita.
Yeah.
And I just, in terms of like thinking about the dream state stuff, it's like that scene for Betty is basically a nightmare.
Absolutely.
Because it's like she wants that part and she's taken to the studio to meet the director to audition for the part, because the casting director for another film says, "Oh, you'd be great at it," which is preceded by this very intense scene of her auditioning for some other film where she gets very hot and heavy with this old man. And it's very melodramatic, but it's also really intense.
It is intense. That stupid bland director.
Yes. and then they go back, then she's going to meet Adam, and they share this look, and you think that's the connection, you think that's the thing, and then but it's not. It's Betty, and it's like she's just playing out this nightmare scenario where she is never chosen. She's never seen. She's seen but not seen, because in that way she wants.
Yeah, because that's what's happened to Diane.
Yeah. Yes.
That's why Diane is all washed up and bitter.
Yes. But the outside of that's some of the fun, the big kind of wider connections with this scene with Adam. But man, what a freaking weird but funny scene. And I can't help but feel like some of the stuff that happens probably happened in real life.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah,
because there was this moment where this big exec guy comes in and they bring him in an espresso or a coffee or something like that. And they're like, "It's the best espresso ever. It's the best. We got you the best." And he takes a drink of it and then just spits it into a napkin.
Well, it's brilliant. I love it.
I do too.
No reason whatsoever. And fun fact, that is Angelo Badalamenti who does the music.
Oh, right. I didn't realize that. That's fun. Yeah. That's fun. But I just felt watching that, I was like, I feel like David Lynch has probably either seen or someone told him about something like this happening.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. At all. What I love about that scene is that it's informing the plot, such as it is. It's introducing Adam as someone who doesn't take any bullshit off people, which I like.
Bit Lynchian, maybe?
Bit Lynchian, yeah. But it's bonkers. It just descends into total madness. and I love the fact that it seems to go on forever.
Yeah.
But you're never once bored with it. And Lynch is great at that. He has scenes that there's a clip of him filming Twin Peaks, the third series, and an exec must have told him one of his scenes is too long, and he just goes on a complete F-bomb tirade. Like, who cares how long a scene is? The scene is as long as it needs to be. It's as long as the scene. The scene is as long as the scene, and things like this. And I get that feeling with this. I bet people were telling him to cut it. Maybe. Because really all that happens is you get one bit of plot point and the espresso bit, but it goes on forever. There's people coming in and then people going out. That happens all the time in Lynch stuff.
Yeah.
And I just love it. It's absolutely brilliant to watch. And it's hilarious.
No, it is. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I was totally hooked on this whole, and the guy's just got a golf club for no reason.
A golf club for no reason, yeah.
That's very Dream-esque. It's like, you were there and like, you had a stick in your hand, but we were in a business meeting.
And then the person you're talking to goes, "But I don't like golf. I don't play golf."
Yes.
I know, but you had a golf club. I can't explain it.
I have a theory that I need to put out there into the universe. Right. So everyone knows I'm a big fan of the show Smallville. And in this scene with Adam and the executives, after it's over with, Adam goes outside and he sees their car and he asks, "Was that those guys in the suits get in that car?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." He takes that golf club that's been in his hand this whole time and he just starts and he bashes the car. Right?
Yep.
And as I was watching this, there's a scene in the second season of Smallville where Lex Luthor, who never, ever, ever talks or plays golf, for some reason has golf bags in the back of his Porsche. And he's given a parking ticket and by one of the wardens, and gets so angry that he goes and gets a golf club and starts, I think, bashing, like, I can't remember what he bashes. It's either, I think he bashes like a car or something like that, and then has to go to anger management. And I remember in the Smallville rewatch podcast called Talkville, where the guys who play Clark and Lex are in there. I remember them kind of poking fun at that scene, being like, "Why did he have a golf? Like, where did any of this come from?" Now, this is in the second season of Smallville, which would have aired in 2002, the year after this film. And it dawned on me, I think that scene, whether the actors knew it or not, and clearly didn't, that scene must be a tribute to that scene in David Lynch.
Well,
in that film.
You're the Smallville expert, but if Lex Luthor's got no interest in golf and he suddenly has a golf club, it's very difficult.
He's always doing other things. Like, he does fencing. There's a lot of fencing, but he never talks about going on a golf trip. And he never talks about golf again the rest of the show.
So, well, I'm struggling to say that it's not in some way a nod to this film.
I feel like it has to be. Anyway, there's my Smallville.
I'm willing to go along with
the
that.
episode.
I'm willing to go along with that. I love the entire introduction to Adam.
Yeah.
I think he's great, and I love the bit because soon after that scene, in fact, is it straight after that scene, he goes home and finds his wife in bed with Billy Ray Cyrus.
Billy Ray Cyrus. I was like, it's Billy Ray Cyrus
of all people.
But again, is that not dreamlike?
Yeah, absolutely.
You were in bed with George Clooney. Fuck you.
Yeah, because absolutely. Yeah, of all the people, I walked in and I found you in bed with Barry Manilow.
But and then it's all, and then at the end of the movie, towards the end, she was with the pool boy.
The pool boy, yeah.
So it's like, it's not Billy Ray Cyrus.
That's not Billy Ray Cyrus. Yeah, and I love the fact he gets that pink paint and pours it in a jewelry.
That was great.
And then for quite a long time, what I suppose you meant to think is the hero is covered in pink spattered black leather, and somehow looks really cool in it. He looks really sort of effective in it,
He does.
And he meets this character. He's told to go and meet a character called the Cowboy.
Yes.
And this entire and this is very noir to me, albeit with a Lynch twist. That message that the PI, whoever gets, saying, "Go to the canyon for midnight."
Oh yes.
Someone will tell you. So, and he thinks, well, this is obviously a trap, but I'll have to go. In this, he's saying, "Go meet the Cowboy."
Yes.
What have I got to do? Ride up to the range? He says.
Yes.
And he takes the mickey out of it all. That entire noir trope is laughed at, because it's a bit of a cliche. But then when he gets there, he meets a cowboy who tells him a vital piece of information that leads him on to the next bit,
Yes.
And then you see the cowboy at the pool party at the end, briefly walk past. Brilliant stuff. This is brilliant stuff.
And I liked the almost Dickensian Christmas Carol ghost like element that the cowboy has. You'll see me once. You'll see me one more time if you do the right thing. You'll see me two more times if you do the bad thing. Now we see him two times.
We see him two times.
She did the bad thing. She did the wrong thing.
She did the wrong thing.
And I think that is such a fun little.
Now this is great. This is what Lynch means when he says all the clues are there. I think
Yes.
And it is true that you can look it up. He did do a 12, or I think it's 10 actually, points for you to look out for. And essentially, he was saying there are clues throughout this film that will explain it all. And I believe that. I believe that because you're right. We see him twice, which means she's done the bad thing.
Yeah, because it's all in her mind, so it's all hers. So that's
all
what
in her
it's
mind.
to.
Yeah,
it's nothing to do with Adam.
And then it was interesting what you said. I meant to pick up on it when you said it before that you'd been. I can't remember what scene you were talking about, but you'd have been. Oh, when she's helping Rita for no reason whatsoever, you'd be screaming at the screen. Well, of course you would, because people don't act like that in real life, do they? They'd say, "Get out of the apartment."
Yes.
I'm going to phone the police, but we're not in real life, are we? We're in her head.
Yes.
In her dream, where anything goes, which is why Lynch gets away with so much.
It's true. I guess this is where like this surrealism can get really frustrating because it's like, well, what's real, man? It's like, all right.
Yeah, but I don't think he ever really. He never overplays his hand.
I agree
on
with
the
that.
dream
I agree.
stuff. You know,
Yes.
you don't get. I mean, there's a joke that, you know, in a David Lynch film, you can always expect some like jelly crocodiles to come walking on and stuff like that. You know, but you don't get any of that. It's all quite tightly kept under control. Really. And essentially, you've got a detective story where you're the detective. I mean, this is like audience participation for me.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, this is like interactive cinema.
I mean, David Lynch, I think, yes, it was Lynch who was like, he got really angry when, like, you know, about people watching movies on their fucking phone, you know, and stuff like that. Because yes, you can't watch this movie and be distracted. You can't. This is, you know, and this is the thing with all storytelling. This is why I get so fucking annoyed when people are like, oh, it's just, you know, it's just mindless entertainment. It's like, no, nothing should be mindless, you dumb fucks. Like, no. it just shouldn't be. It's like, I don't care if you're doing a comedy or if you're doing a serious drama. Neither should be mindless. I don't care if it's a kid's show or whatever the hell. Like, mindless is ridiculous. And I think, you know, what part of his frustration was, you know, when he was angry about people watching movies on their fucking phone, was that, you know, it's like, you aren't engaged. You're not seeing the big picture. This isn't how this is meant to be, you know, consumed. And you're meant to be engaged with it. And if you're watching on your phone while you're on the bus, well, you're not really engaged.
You're not really engaged. No, you're not really engaged. And he wants you to be immersed in it. You know, and to experience it. And crucially, I think, for David Lynch, and really, this should be crucial for anybody that does anything artistic. He wants you to have an emotional response to it.
Yes.
And he doesn't care if that is to throw your remote control through the television screen because you're so frustrated with it.
Yeah.
It's inspired something in you. You know, that's why, you know, I know some writers who say the bad reviews are just as good as good reviews because it means someone's had a response, essentially.
Yes.
You know, so that's what Lynch wants out of you. He wants you to watch this and be moved by it in some way. And you can't do that if you're texting or watching it on your phone or, you know, talking to your wife about what shopping you need the next day. This is a film that demands your attention because, as I say, I think it is interactive cinema because it's asking you, it's not going to do it for you. It's asking you to solve the mystery. And the mystery is, what the hell's happening? So, you know, and I think if you do watch it carefully, you can. You might not have the answer that David Lynch had in his head, because who the hell knew what was going on in that head apart from him? But as long as you've got, it's almost like they used to say at school, as long as you've got evidence from the text to back it up, it's a valid answer.
Yes. But as Roger Ebert says about this film, there is no explanation. There may not even be a mystery.
Yeah, I saw that quote. I love that quote. There may not even be a mystery. Who knows? I think there is a mystery. It's just that all the entire mystery is in her head. Yeah. Is what the mystery is, what's going on in her head.
Yes. And you almost got to assume that the wad of money represents the money she had to pay to off Camilla, yeah. You know, that's what that random money is. It has, you know, in a random purse.
And as I said before, the hitman is obviously a good one. Yeah. So in the dream, he has to be a moron because he has to be a moron because she's sort of cleansing herself of the actual violence that she's bringing down on this woman out of, you know, woman scorned and jealousy motives. Yes.
That the hitman scene in the dream is an absolute riot.
There's a similar scene in the third series of Twin Peaks. I think so. Lynch was even riffing off himself when he got to the third series of Twin Peaks. But yeah, it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
I love the whole bit where she shoots the guy and he's trying to clean a gun, shoots through the wall, and you hear some woman going, ah, and then it's this rather large woman, and he just can't even kill her.
He can't kill her, no. And I love the bit when he finally does kill her. The janitor comes in with the vacuum cleaner.
Yes.
And he kills him, and the vacuum cleaner goes off.
Yes.
It turns on, and then the pipes blowing it, everything.
Yes.
It's like a little comedy sketch, just for the sake of having a comedy sketch.
It's like Laurel and Hardy kind of goofiness. It's just very, very funny because he shoots the vacuum cleaner, and then the lights go off, and it explodes. Lights go off, and the alarm starts going on.
Yeah,
and he's just like, "Oh God!"
So he jumps out the window.
Yeah. And the fact that the janitor's like, "Oh, she's hurt." Like he can see he's like strangling her. And he's like, "Oh, she's hurt real bad. You need to get in here, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on."
Yeah, I can't do it alone, he says.
And I just like when the janitor just like starts walking down the hallway pushing his stupid vacuum cleaner.
But again, really slowly. It goes on forever. That janitor getting to the door goes on forever.
But isn't that? But again, if we go back to the dream state stuff, like when you're trying to get somewhere quickly in a dream,
and you never get there,
can't.
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
So frustrating.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
It feels like that. It's
you're running to get to a house, and all of a sudden you're on a different road.
Yes, because the other thing that's interesting is we talk about these noir elements. It's 45 minutes into the movie before Rita and Betty even have the conversation of I don't know who I am, and they find the money and no ID.
Yeah,
and I was because when that happened, I checked the time, not because I was bored, but because I was like, oh yeah, I forgot this is part of the movie because there's so much stuff happens between Rita's car accident and then this moment, and I'm like, this has been going on for 45 minutes. Holy crap! Like,
yeah, I wonder if there's a bit of the TV pilot left over in all that, because you get introduced to a lot of different people, very quickly, and I wonder if they all would have had their own stories that could have been developed. One of the things Lynch liked about doing Twin Peaks was that you could investigate all the characters.
Yes, I remember seeing
in great depth, and he wanted to sort of do that again, I think, with this.
Yes.
So, but none of it seems wasted to me. None of it.
No.
You can't say that you're bored in this film.
No, not at all.
By any stretch,
No. I think that's the thing. Like, there's certain people who are like, I don't watch TV shows. I don't got time for TV shows. And I've never understood that. I only watch movies. I only watch cinema. I'm like, really? Why? You're missing out on really great stuff and I think for that reason, there are certain shows that can accomplish something that a 2-hour film might not be able to accomplish with its depth and fleshing out of multiple protagonists.
Yeah,
or antagonists,
or antagonists. Yeah, I go so far as to say that if you only watch movies, you're probably watching more dross than not at the minute. So
at the minute, yeah.
So whereas on TV, there seems to be a lot of good TV around at the minute. So I don't know. I don't understand that. Just generally, I don't understand that point of view. So, but I mean, Lynch is right. You can do more in a TV series if you've got 10 episodes to investigate, 15 episodes to investigate a lot of different characters. You can do more. But I don't get lost with any of these people. I don't think because they're all so. You said before about him being able to write character and dialogue. They're all so distinct that you know who they are. You don't get lost with the number of people he's foisting upon you because they're all so well defined.
Yes, yeah, it's true. I mean I was totally with every single person the whole way through. You don't get lost. You don't get confused, even though the film is confusing. If you're paying attention, there's a lot to gain. I think
there's a lot to gain. Yeah, definitely.
Movie.
Definitely.
Do you have any dislikes?
Well, I don't like the swing opening. I would much prefer it to have started with that overview of Los Angeles. And I do like the fact that the words Mulholland Drive come on in white letters.
Yeah.
And then gradually you realise that that's the actual road sign. I think that's a brilliant shot. Brilliant shot. And that seems a much more fitting opening.
Yeah.
To me. I assume,
let me just interrupt real quick. I'm assuming the swing dancing intro is only there because the film that Betty lost out to was some 1960s swinging kind of movie.
Yeah, well, I've got the 10 things that you put in the Blu-ray or DVD.
I'm glad I didn't see any of that, by the way. I had no idea that even existed.
Well, the very first one. So if he's doing them in order of importance, this is the most important. Pay particular attention in the beginning of the film. At least 2 clues are revealed before the credits.
Okay.
Now that's the swing thing. I can only think it's the old people who then at the end of the film come Irene and whatever he's called, she meets the airport, who have then got these rictus grins in the back of the cab.
Yes.
To show that the fake Hollywood isn't this a lovely place thing.
Yes.
And then they come scuttling out as midgets at the end of the film. Under the robe of that moss thing.
Very creepy, yes.
Which I have a theory about the moss thing.
Okay.
And then another of these things is, can you hear the title of the film that Adam Keisha is auditioning actresses for? And is it mentioned again? And the title of the film is The Sylvia North Story.
Okay.
And at the dinner table at the pool party, Diane says, we were both up for a part in Sylvia North, and she got it and I didn't.
Oh, okay. So that was it.
So it ties in. Yeah, it ties in. But to answer you,
I got it without needing his bullet points.
yeah. You're a Lynch genius. I don't really know what the swing thing is about. I'm sure it has a meaning, but I can't pin it down. And I just think it would have been a better, moodier, noir opening if we'd started with those streets.
Maybe the swing has a deeper meaning, but I legitimately think it's just there to signpost when they go to that audition and they're filming I think it's just to signify that. Yeah.
Well, if it's that, I don't think it's needed. I think he could cut that.
Yeah.
So I don't like that. One of the other points actually is what is felt, realized, and gathered at the Club Silencio. And I just wonder if that's like a reference to the fit that we mentioned before, and she's feeling like the end products of her own criminality or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't like the swing opening. Is there anything else I don't like? Not a great deal, to be honest.
Same.
Not a great deal.
Yeah. I think swing is the one thing I'm like, that opening just seems unnecessary. But other than that, I don't really have a.
No, I think this film looks fabulous, and I think it moves at a pace, despite the fact I've sat through an hour and a half films that have seen longer than this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I've also sat through films of the same duration and felt every single second of them.
Yes.
So you're in the hands of a master with this film, I think.
Yes, which is what Theroux, I think, was referring to when he's like, "Look, in lesser hands, this might not have worked." But my absolutely. God, this guy knows what he's doing. He knows.
Yeah, he does know what he's doing, and I think he knows what he's doing from the outset. He knows exactly what he wants, which is why he directs the way he does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think there's anything that I dislike apart from the swing, and that's because I don't get it, and it just seems a very jarring opening when it then segues into this really noirish,
proper noir sort of opening
title sequence. That then, what I do like about it is the story starts straight away. Although you don't know it's a dream at first, obviously. So that the idea that the car crash and the money in the bag and her escaping the car. You're in it immediately. There's no build up to it, and I love then the juxtaposition of Betty arriving in Los Angeles, all wide eyed and beaming, and she brightly lit.
With that scene, actually, I don't know about you. I don't know if it was just my copy or what. when Betty comes out of the airport and she's speaking with the two old people, Irene and whatever his name is.
Yeah.
I just, for some reason, I felt like I was noticing that the movement of the mouths didn't match the audio. It didn't match what they were saying totally. As in like it was off by like a half a second.
Not sure.
And I
didn't even notice that.
And I don't know if that was just maybe like because I watched it on streaming. Don't know if that was like a streaming thing, a bit of a problem, or what. No other scene had that.
Right.
And I just it made me think: is this part of the dream aspect? This is all a bit? This is slightly off by just like a hair of a second. So I don't know if it was intentional or not. I need to go back and read. I should have.
I'd need to go and watch that scene again to find out if my version did the same. I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
But if it does, then you can bet your life it's on purpose.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, and it will be something. It will be saying something about the fact that in Hollywood, you don't always say what you mean, and you don't. You know, people say things that aren't true, and you know there'll be something like that because. As much as being a loose detective story and a noir, and a love story, I think this is certainly a love story between the two women, albeit a dark one. This is as I said before, a bitter and acidic love letter to Hollywood, to movie making, to the city.
Yes, I mean Rita getting her name off of Rita Hayworth.
And, yeah. The fact it's about making a movie, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of he's saying a lot about what he thinks his business is about, I think, in this. And sometimes I think people say this as a when they're trying to be too clever. When they say things like, you know, the city is a character in itself. You know, I think that's true of some things, certainly. You know, it's like Rankin's Edinburgh or Dexter's Oxford. Yeah. You know, but I don't think it's always true when people say it. It's definitely true here. Los Angeles is definitely, and Hollywood is definitely like a malign presence in this film.
Yes, I'd say so. Should we go back to our new segment and look at a couple of user reviews of Mulholland Drive to see what the people thought about it. I love this one. Pointless surrealism, 1 star. That's the review.
Yeah, I've got a 1-star review here that says, "My wife and I sat there in amazement and disgust. This is one of the worst movies we have ever seen." Now, I do not understand that. I do not understand how you can say that. I really don't. I just think they've totally missed the point there. Totally missed the point.
Well, they're not watching the movie the way they need to be watching it, I would say.
No, they were probably talking throughout it, you know, and saying, you know, I bet they're the sort of people who say, "We know him from something else. Was he in Hawaii Five-0 once?" And then they have a 10-minute discussion about who this actor is.
Probably.
You know.
Here's a 0.5 star review. One of the worst, most creepy, nonsensical movies I have seen in my whole life. I just opened an account in Rotten Tomatoes to prevent people from watching this and losing their precious time. I am sure you have better things to do, perhaps bathing the cat. This is one of those movies you think, what, 80%? Come on.
Wow. I opened an account just to stop people watching it.
Yep. Oh, here's another 0.5 star. It's hard to keep track of this story. So boring.
Yeah.
Another one. Boring, weird nonsense.
This says, worst 1 star. Worst movie I've ever seen. I realize it's a Holly weird inside joke meant for a certain group of diddlers.
Oh my God.
But there's no reason to fawn over the ridiculous.
Oh wow. Wow. I absolutely love looking at some of these 1-star. Here's one more 0.5 star review. Self-immolation seems like a great alternative to watching this now that I've finally watched it.
Wow. I'd rather set myself on fire than watch this film. That's a very, very opinionated and definite statement to make.
Yeah. I again, I think you see some of these and you're just sort of like, yeah, I don't really know if you're paying attention to the film. I feel like your expectations were for one thing, and this is you got to watch this differently. There was someone, a guy by the name of Todd McGowan wrote about David Lynch that you cannot watch a David Lynch film the way one watches a standard Hollywood film noir, nor the way one watches the most radical films. It's just, you have to think, you have to turn your brain on and see it on a different plane. It's a different plane.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. Being brutally honest, and I'm a Lynch fan. If you gave the tagline to this film and said, and they try and solve the mystery together, and you gave it somebody who had never seen a David Lynch film before, then their minds would just melt. I accept that. Because some of these reviews make me wonder if people know who if the people writing them knew who David Lynch was.
That is exactly it.
That's the impression I get. I don't think they do.
No.
And I mean, here's a half a star review here. This is hands down one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I'd rather be strapped to a chair in a cell on a blacklisted CIA site and made to watch every horror movie ever made whilst being given copious amounts of LSD.
Oh my God.
That person, I think, doesn't know what David Lynch is all about.
No, I don't think they do.
Because if you're going to watch this expecting, even a Maltese Falcon, even something as great as that, you're going to be, but you don't know anything about Lynch's reputation or what you might get in a Lynch film. The rug is going to be pulled squarely from under your feet, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess the other thing it could be that for certain films, age, maturity level, right time are also very important, and having some background knowledge. Like, you just need to know. Like, just Google David Lynch
and see what you get. Yeah, just see what you're going to get. I mean, for a long time, it was a running joke with a friend of mine that David Lynch's most linear and accessible film was The Elephant Man. Which in itself is not an average film,
No.
So, but I think for all those reviews, we should, this is often cited as one of the greatest films of all time. Certainly cited as one of Lynch's best, and I think I think it topped a poll of a BBC poll that it was one of the best films of the 2000s. Is it one of the greatest films of all time? Don't know about that.
Well, we haven't lived all time yet, so I already have problems when people say all time. It's like,
yeah.
So
what you mean is that you've seen. That's what they mean.
Yes.
And I certainly think it's one of those. And I certainly think if I had to, if somebody was going to sort of put a gun to my head and say, I'd say that it's probably my favorite of his films, and I think it probably is his best film. I think it's his most accomplished film. That's not to say that the others aren't accomplished, because they are. But I think this is probably his of this type. I mean, you can't compare this to Eraserhead. You can't compare Eraserhead to anything. So, and that in itself, I mean, that blew people away when they saw it. They had never seen anything like it, and I like that. Something that's so original that you can honestly say, I've never seen anything like this. Is an impressive response to get to a movie.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of his greatest, and I think it's a film that people should see.
Definitely.
And I think it's a film people will enjoy if they know what Lynch is about and they are prepared to put all distractions aside and concentrate on it, because it needs you to do that. It wants you to do that.
I agree. I think on that, you might as well give your rating. So people know, we rate all of our films out of 5 Falcons, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. What is your rating for Mulholland Drive?
People can't see, but I'm really scratching my head about this because my quandary here is: does the swing dance opening merit losing a falcon?
Wow.
I don't think it does. I'm going to say this is a 5 for me.
Sure. I think that's fair enough. I thoroughly enjoyed it, even though I didn't like the swing thing at the opening. It's such a small section of the film. It's like 2 minutes or something like that. I can let that slide. I think dialogue, pacing, for the fact this is 2.5 hours and you're not bored. It's complicated and layered and fascinating. I really, really enjoyed it. I will give Mulholland Drive 5 Falcons. I feel like it's the first 5 Falcon I've given in a while.
I think it is. And for those listening who followed us from the beginning, you know how good this film must be then if Luke's given it a 5 Falcons.
Exactly. It's I can't remember the last time I gave a 5 on this here now program.
But I think it deserves it. I genuinely think it deserves it. And it's a challenging film. There's no doubt about that. But it's a rewarding one as well. And if you're prepared what this does is if you're prepared to put the effort in, and let's face it, why shouldn't you? You will get a lot out of it. You'll get a lot in return.
Absolutely. I think we both did, and it's a fantastic movie.
It certainly is highly recommended.
Yeah. Well, I think we've thoroughly investigated David Lynch's Mulholland Drive as best we can in one sitting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the other thing about David Lynch is that they demand repeat viewings. So
yes,
we could do another episode of this in a couple of years' time and have a completely different episode and a completely different interpretation, perhaps. I think
we probably could. Well, that wraps up our investigation. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week with another case. In the meantime, please like and subscribe, and be sure to take care walking down those mean streets.